I'm David Kohlmeyer, the founder of the Las Vegas Legal Network. The reason why I started the Legal Network is that I noticed that consumers were looking for lawyers and they didn't know what to look for, who to call, where to go. My goal was to create the Legal Network in Las Vegas to help people find the right lawyer to help them depending upon their legal case. I'm not an attorney. This is a lawyer referral network that is helping people get the right lawyer when they need it the most. We offer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where we have lawyers in the network ready and available to help people, whatever their situation or whatever their problem is. Whether they got arrested, an accident, injured, family law cases, whatever legal matter, the Las Vegas Legal Network is here to help people in Clark County. And the other person could have, let's say, a red mark or a scratch. Welcome to the Problem Solver Show. I'm David Kohlmeyer. Today we're going to be talking about a major topic. It's what is taking place in Ukraine. Are we going to go to World War III? What's going on? And today I have an amazing guest who's Ukrainian that's going to speak about her perspective in general. Today, my lovely co-host, Beja. Thanks for joining again. And then we have Nataliya Blidy, who based out of New York City, visiting Las Vegas here today. And I'm so appreciative for you coming on the show today.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Beja, for having me.
So the big thing really what's going on is, I know originally we messaged each other on social media and I was like, hey, I want you to come on the show. And then we talked about doing Zoom and now you're in Vegas. So it's great to have someone here in the actual studio. So I guess tell me a little bit about yourself and where your ethnic background is. And I really appreciate you sharing this because not everybody is so up to sharing, that information.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to share. I am Ukrainian, born and raised, fully blooded Ukrainian. I was born in Western Ukraine and I grew up there. I moved here when I was young. So I have deep ties to Ukraine. My whole family is back in Ukraine, countless friends, aunts, uncles, my parents. So I get news every day from the ground. The life in Ukraine, as I remember, it was wonderful and it was getting better. I moved back in 2002, but it's changed dramatically. My last visit to Ukraine was this past August, and I'm very proud of how far my country has become. If you would look at Ukraine, different cities, and we visited Lviv, we visited Kiev, and it looked so much more European. It looked beautiful with a nice infrastructure, with the nice roads, and that shift moving to Europe was so apparent, and we were all very happy for that. So, and it's very difficult for me to see how it all changes and how it's all getting destroyed right now by Russian mercenaries as we speak. The way the situation is on the ground, Western Ukraine has been relatively safe compared to the Eastern Ukraine, obviously, and it has become kind of a forepost of the whole Ukrainian resistance. So what we see right now, all of the people who moved to Western Ukraine right now are mobilizing, and this is where we get weapons from the West, and this is where we get all the support and medical aid that gets shipped over to the war-torn areas.
It's just so much going on in general. So let me ask you a question. So how was life there? You said you went last August?
Yes,
okay.
I did.
So, everything was like normal, like society, like...
I can show you some beautiful pictures that I took of a beautiful restaurants, of a beautiful sites, of a beautiful old churches that were restored. The life was getting better for the average Ukrainian, the way I saw it, even from last, 5-6 years ago when I visited. Prior to that, I've seen businesses. I've seen better infrastructure. I've said it before. People were freely moving about Europe, and I think that's partially the reason why Russia had to invade, or whatever the reason would be, because Ukrainians started living much better, and the ties are still close with Russians and Ukrainians. So if the average Ukrainian is living much better, Russia cannot keep up their propaganda with their own citizens. Why does Russian
So why was
Right, that makes sense.
so why was the quality of life like? Why was it getting better? Just that the economy and stuff like that. I mean, basically what you're saying is that the Russian maybe was jealous of what things were going so well in Ukraine.
I mean, if you put it in that perspective, I guess I have to say
Quality of life for the
quality of
people?
life. Yes, I visited Russia at some point ago. So the comparison actually was becoming more apparent. If you look at it, even the little villages in Ukraine were nicely
Thriving.
paved, and it just, you would have to see it. The businesses, the local smaller businesses, and a big push to it was also for citizens being able to travel freely to Europe. So the transfer of knowledge, once the European borders were open, people were bringing in, knowledge, education, and freely sharing the businesses, as opposed to kind of a closer ties to Russia that we had, as a post-Soviet environment. So.
How do you feel like if I was Ukrainian, I'm there, like what are my feelings towards the Russian people? Is it the Russian people is not the issue because a lot of times there's family ties and there's connections, right? Is it the government? Like prior to the war, what would the Ukrainian people say? Like, we love Russia, Russia's great, or the people, what would be your opinion?
That is a very good question. Things changed with the war dramatically. Ukraine was always divided, so to speak, by language. We had Western Ukraine and we have Eastern Ukraine. And Eastern Ukraine always had closer ties to Russia. They were predominantly Russian speaking, so obviously the ties were there, and leaning towards Russia in culture and economy and everything else. I think things changed so dramatically because Russia, by invading mostly Eastern Ukraine, got themselves an enemy. I think the Eastern Ukrainians who speak Russian, who are closer in ties with Russians, we see them pretty much hating at this point of time. I mean...
But it's the Russian government or the Russian people? Because it seems like the Russian people are really against the war as well, right? People are leaving too.
Not exactly.
So it's mixed.
It is, if you look at Russia, 60% people support the war. So it's
60% of the people in Russia support the war.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They are brainwashed by Russian propaganda. If you look at the propaganda leading up to the war, they were throwing up any kinds of things against the wall, trying to see if it would stick. Ukrainians are neo-Nazis. Ukrainians are killing Russian speakers. Ukrainians are, if you look at some of this propaganda, even the ones that we have here on social media, propagated by thousands of Russian bots, you'll hear they try to throw up a different stories and see what will stick, just to kind of create the division, not only, by the way, in Ukraine, but here as well. So
the Russian people basically just really don't know what's going on in general. They're just giving propaganda in regards to what's happening in Ukraine or the neo-Nazism and stuff like that. And that's where basically 60% of the people think that the war is good because of the propaganda that they're hearing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. We're going to come back. We're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, I wanted to start talking about like with the war, when it started in general, and then how it's affecting the Ukrainian people. So we'll be right back.
Sounding good has never been more simple. At Sticky Pod Studios, we strive to make it as easy as possible to reach your audience. Our state-of-the-art podcasting facility enables you to come in, sit down, and speak to your audience. We handle the tech. It's that simple. Visit our website or DM us on Instagram at Sticky Pod Studios. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back to The Problem Solver. Today we're talking about Ukraine and what's going on in general. We have Natalia, who is from Ukraine, families from Ukraine in general. So we're talking a little bit of information about what's going on with thoughts.
Yes. So I have a question. It's been 44 days since the war started. Where do you see it from where it first started and how it's going now?
That's a good
Are
question.
you still concerned about the family and the children that are there?
Absolutely, every
The
day.
safety?
The last reports that we've seen coming out from the towns near Kiev, it's the atrocities that were committed. We are afraid every single day, not only because of the infrastructure that is broken, the roads that has been destroyed, and the buildings and everything else that we had. But so we are afraid every single day. So the Western Ukraine has been spared so far. We're afraid what is going to come out from Mariupol and the East Ukraine. The way it looks right now, Russians try to bite more than they could chew, and they're losing, which is good for us. However, we're paying a heavy price for it. So Russians repositioned their military to take over most of the East Ukraine, and I think that will be their main objective. I think that they are going to try to connect the land bridge to Crimea, a territory that already took back in 2014. To connect it to rest of Russia and some of the other territories that they already annexed in 2014.
It feels that, in my perspective, watching news every single night, that I'm not that I'm some expert watching the news, but it just seems like he's just at this point in time just sending missiles basically to blow everything up, so he could just kind of clean it up. Everyone leaves and then just make it Russia, right? I mean, he's basically just it's all about real estate. It's all about land. He's just trying to take over the land, and then if people are leaving, then it's easier for him. What's your thoughts with that?
Absolutely. So the very first blitzkrieg that he tried to do failed by overthrowing the whole Ukrainian government. It fell apart. So I think they now are making it up as they go. So it's very chaotic, and I think they implemented the scorched earth policy. And Russian military's morale is very low. However, the Russian military, there's always been a saying there that the Russian soldier is more afraid of their command as opposed to their enemies. So you have to understand that their mindset and their military mindset is a lot different. So they will go and they will obey the order. They will kill civilians and they will do that on purpose. That's coming from the above. It is not just some rogue soldiers that just came in and killed the civilians. That comes from the top.
Why do you think that they're really targeting the children? Like the schools and all these, the hospitals. I mean, they're just trying to create total fear so people just leave.
To terrorize the population, to make the Ukrainian government agree to their deluded demands.
And that was going to be my question. So a lot of people fled because they were fearful to be there. Are there people there now that are standing firm, that are like, we're not going to leave Ukraine and we're going to fight?
Absolutely.
Is your family?
Yes, absolutely. My family is part of the same crew. I try to... countless times I asked them to leave, and they don't want to.
How much family is there now?
Well, I have my parents, I have my brother, I have his wife, I have aunts,
everybody,
cousins. So pretty much everybody. I'm the loner here in United States. So everybody is back home, and everybody is staying. And the position there from most of my family and everybody that I know is we are going to stay. And if we need to die, if we are going to die, we will die. But we will die knowing that we defended our country. So
some of the photos you see, these apartments, buildings that are all how are their situation? Are they not affected where they are right now, or they are? Is it chaotic where they are right now? It seems like some spots they're not hitting, right?
Yes. So if you look at the map of Ukraine, the Western Ukraine has been spared. They've been hit, but not the residential buildings. I guess just the military targets and airfields has been hit. So my family is safe, and I'm very happy for that. They do hear sirens every single day. It's very difficult sleeping. So I'll give you an example. I have friends who have kids. Their school is, they don't have school. They're trying to have a semblance of online school. However, kids hear sirens at night. They don't get to sleep. They're terrified. They're frightened. They don't come to online school at 8 a.m. in the morning. So the schools changed. So we don't have schools. The actual school buildings in the Western Ukraine is used to house the refugees from the Eastern Ukraine. So every single kindergarten, every single school is filled with refugees right now.
It's heartbreaking.
What do you think in regards to sanctions? All I hear on the news every day, we're doing more sanctions, we're doing more. What should I feel personally, it just seems like they should have done stuff prior to this whole war situation. Sanctions should have been started right when they were moving military around. What are your thoughts? What should be America doing? What should be the president be doing? Because he thinks, in his mindset, probably he's doing the most he can without starting World War III. What are your thoughts? What else could be done where you don't get America involved in a World War III?
I couldn't agree more. I think we should have created those sanctions before, even in 2014. What emboldened Putin is he got a slap on the wrist when he took over part of Georgia, when he indiscriminately bombed Syria, when he took over part of Ukraine in 2014. It was just a few sanctions. So the sanctions that we have now, they are very powerful, but they are not going to do anything short term. And they will most likely ruin the Russian economy in the long term, but in the short term, we need weaponry. We need, of course, closing the skies would have been wonderful, and I think we can do the rest. It's a tough spot for any president to be. You put boots on the ground, you'll have a World War III, which is something that we don't want to do. However, sooner than later, I think this is going to go that way.
You think so? And what about the neighboring countries? What's very interesting is the whole thing with Poland, that they said, like, hey, if you give your Poland jets, to the Ukrainian people, then America will actually resupply them with the jets. But Poland doesn't want to make that move because basically they'll start, shooting at Poland, right? So I thought it was interesting. Like, you give your stuff, we'll replenish you, but technically Poland, in some regards, you would say, if we're giving weaponry to the Ukrainian people, aren't we really involved? If we're supporting them? I guess it is also different if we're actually physically involved, but what's your thoughts with the neighboring? They're afraid as well.
Of course, especially Poland is on the next target list, so they will do everything they need to. And I think NATO should have been doing a lot more that they can. But I think in Europe, a lot of countries like Poland, Slovakia, on the next hit list for Putin, will do individual steps to provide Ukraine with weaponry.
Okay, we're going to be right back, and then we're going to talk about how people here locally in Las Vegas can help the Ukrainian people when we get right back.
At some point in your life, you're going to need an attorney. Call Las Vegas Legal Network. They have all of the resources you need.
I highly recommend Las Vegas Legal Network. They're great. They'll put you in touch with the right people and make things a lot easier on you.
Las Vegas Legal Network has been a tremendous help to me. It couldn't be any nicer, couldn't be any more helpful. If I ever get into an accident, knock on wood, I don't, they are who I would go to.
Don't try to do it on your own. Call Las Vegas Legal Network.
I highly recommend Las Vegas Legal Network, and I will recommend it to my family and friends, without a doubt.
Welcome back to The Problem Solver. Today, we are talking with Nataliya Blidy, who is from Ukraine. We have Beja here as co-host. We're finishing up this segment about what's going on in Ukraine, how we can help people in general, what's going on in the economy, and so on. Beja, what were your thoughts? You had a question you wanted to ask her?
Yeah, so how is the war affecting the U.S. economy as far as the oil, gas, all that goes?
My personal thoughts that it's a minimal impact that Russia has on the U.S. economy. It's far greater scale on the European economy. And Europe actually will have to make a tough choice to stop supplying Russian gas and oil to actually be able to tame that monster. However, in the U.S., I think it's a minimal impact. We already, we imported I think 2 or 3% of Russian oil to begin with, and with stopping, I don't see a major impact. Remember, you have to remember Russia's GDP is that size of an Italy. Russia's war machine is far greater, of course.
So at this point in time, people are leaving and they're going to different places. I even heard actually in Las Vegas that there may be about I think it was 10 or 20,000 Ukrainian people may come in. Have you heard any specific numbers? Like people, normally what America does, they split up people in every state. They'll say, hey, can you take 10,000? So I've heard that 10,000 Ukrainian people were supposed to be coming to Las Vegas. Have you heard anything in regards to the different states or where they're going?
So there's not enough information for us, and we are just waiting for official ways or pathways for those refugees that are trying to flee the conflict to come to United States, and we are standing by and trying to help them. There are a lot of refugees that are crossing the Mexican border now, also Canadian border as well. The last number was 100,000 refugees. However, there's no exact way of a legal pathway for them to come directly from let's say Poland or Slovakia or whatever countries that they came from directly to the U.S. Once it will become available, we'll pull all of the resources as far as the Ukrainian communities that we have already established in New York and all the other communities that we have to help those refugees pour in.
Now, where do you feel we're at right now? Do you feel that they're going to just take the eastern part of Ukraine and then just stop, make it like it's, Berlin, with the wall, and then that's it? And then you think 5-6 years later, they'll try to invade more again? You think it's just a time situation?
I think so. I think if we don't do something to stop it, I think Russia will just keep throwing bodies and missiles at Ukraine until they carve out a little bit more of Ukraine. And it's just a matter of time until they will gobble up the whole Ukraine and go further.
It's just interesting because they say, like with Putin, that, it's more about leaving a legacy at this point in time is what he's trying to do, that he wants to be in the history books, right? That he's like taking over the land and make Russia, like kind of the Soviet Union situation. But so at this point in time, do you think things will settle down a little bit, or we just really don't know at this point in time? Or what is your family saying in Ukraine? Like, what do they hear from the streets of Ukraine? What do they say?
It is everybody's guess at this point of time.
So nobody knows.
It's hard to predict what is in Putin's mind. It has been unpredictable, the way he started the war and how it's going. So I think they just go in with the flow. And as far as the Russia,
you did mention earlier that you feel that they've bitten off more than they can chew.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the idea was there to try to take over the government of Ukraine, install a puppet government, and have a next kind of Belarus next to their border. That did not happen. So at this point of time, they go in for the next best strategy, and that would be to take the East Ukraine.
Do you think, not that we're like some major economists here in general, but do you feel like, and we talked about gas, Beja brought up gas, and what other things do you think that were affected? I mean, everything, like my parents are in New York now, they sent me a picture of eggs, a dozen eggs, like $4.99. With inflation going on, the war, like how do you really feel that the war is really going to affect us here in Las Vegas? A lot of people, they don't watch the news these days, right? A lot of people don't have Cox Cable, they're watching, they have apps, or they're just in their own world. How do you think it's affecting us here in the United States besides the gasoline? Do you think it's increased pricing as well? Or
of course. I mean, war is a terrible business. It will affect us all, of course. First, Ukrainians are dying, and that's a terrible price. I would pay a lot more, for my gas if I didn't have to see Ukrainians dying every single day. Right. But it will affect all of us. I think here in America altogether, Las Vegas, in New York and other places, we're not going to be as affected as the rest of Europe, which is in a close proximity and somewhat dependent on Russian imports.
Okay, well, we have a QR code set up for our viewers. It is, it's to help the nonprofit organizations that you have set up. Can you tell us more about the nonprofit organizations?
Yes, thank you, Beja. I actually back two organizations, and I wanted to tell you a little bit more about it. Both of them are American-based Ukrainian organization. One of them I belong to. It's a Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, which I am part of in our New York branch. So we are raising awareness and raising funds to help with medical aid and refugee resettlement for those who left Ukraine. There's also another nonprofit called Razom for Ukraine, which is also East Coast based. They've done a lot of good shipping supplies, also medical aid as well, because that's what Ukrainians need right now at the moment.
So all they'll have to do is just scan that QR code and both of them will show up and
Yes.
That's how they can help.
Absolutely.
So the QR code that you see on the screen right now, it takes you to the problemsolver.vegas. It's an app that we have that is resources locally in Las Vegas. As the problem solver, we set up different resources, and we'll go to a specific location. Your links will be set up there, and then if people want to donate, it's how we in the community of Las Vegas can help support the Ukrainian people. And I appreciate you letting us know what nonprofits, because a lot of people don't know what nonprofits are out there, and that you have family that's there, so you are really concerned, and it's something that we can do in Las Vegas to help solve the problem, as well as at least with funding to help the situation. And we all are affected. I mean, no matter what, even though it's further away, we're all affected, especially in Las Vegas. And eventually we're going to have Ukrainian people that are, refugees that are coming to Las Vegas. And the truth is we should reach out to help them with getting jobs, employment. I know several nonprofits locally that help people get started, which is amazing. Most people don't even know that even exists,
You can set up
Thank
something
you.
here as well.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
Is there anything, as we wrap up the show, I really appreciate you coming on the show to talk about it. I know it's devastating what's going on in your family. Of course, we wish them and support them, and everything that we can do, we're going to try to help the fundraiser aspect. People in Las Vegas, that's why we have the QR code that you see on the screen to basically scan with your phone, donate some money to help the Ukrainian people. Anything else you want to share?
Absolutely. I just wanted to say thank you, a heartfelt thank you to America and everybody. We Ukrainians, and I know because all of my family is Ukrainian, they feel your support, they know. And it is very difficult time for all of us, especially the ones that we are here, the sense of guilt and survivor's guilt, I guess, for not being there and not helping directly on the ground. At least we can do something here to help them with medical aid, with all the supplies that they need to continue this fight. So I wanted to say thank you to all of you.
No problem. Thank you, Nataliya, for
you.
being on the show. Beja, thanks for co-hosting today. I'm David Colmeyer, the problem solver. Let's help support the Ukrainian people. The QR code that's on your screen, scan it, donate some money, help the people. Let's come together in Las Vegas, help any refugees that come here from Ukraine. Otherwise, be safe. See you next Tuesday, 6 p.m.
Podcasting is one of the great wonders to start creating content for your brand. At Sticky Pod Studios, you have a professional studio with audio and video podcasting capabilities to hit every angle of your market. We have in-house editors who are ready to create micro pieces of content from your podcast to post on social media as well. You come in, sit down, and we handle the tech. It's that simple. Visit our website or DM us on Instagram at Sticky Pod Studios. See you soon.
That was weird.
It happens all the time.